Hi, boys and girls. So we are going to read an article together today, and it is about the Department of Education. So if you remember, we talked about how there are multiple different kinds of departments, and they're federal, which means the government is in charge of them, and they kind of help to control different parts of the way that we do things and what we do exactly. So yesterday we read about all of many of the different types of schools that kids go to. If you remember, we learned about the school where part of their school day is held outside in the forest and part of it is held inside. We talked about the orphanage and the way that they did school there. We talked about the school that had over 70 kids in a classroom, which is crazy. But we kind of got a glimpse of how other kids go to school in some other places. So we're going to read about the Department of Education, which kind of helps to determine how we go to school and what we learn when we are at school. So we're going to read, and I'm going to actually move myself over here. And I'm going to make some markups and highlight some things during this. You do not need to do markups. If you would like to, you can gladly do them. However, you don't need to. I'm going to do it just because, I'm going to kind of talk about some of those things with you. So the Department of Education, and as you can see there, that's a photo of a classroom. It looks similar to most classrooms, similar to how our classroom looks in some senses. It looks like they're a little bit younger, which is why some of the colored carpet and things like that are there. So let's read. The Department of Education is one of the most important parts of the United States government. The department is important because it creates policies for America's public schools. A policy is a plan of action. Education policies are created to help schools and make them more effective. The main goal is to make sure that students learn as much as they can in school. So from this paragraph, I learned basically it creates a plan of action right here. So they kind of come up with a plan as to what we are going to do, what we're supposed to do, and how we're going to teach you. Education policies cover many different topics. Some education policies deal with how teachers should teach. Other education policies decide what should be taught in schools. And some education policies deal with how schools should be run. Right here is the seal of the U.S. Department of Education. So you may see that. If you ever see that, that means that whatever you're reading or whatever you're looking at was created or brought to you by the Department of Education. Why do you think it has a tree? Let's think about that. Think about what a tree might have to do with education. So, maybe it has to do with growth. Your mind is growing. Maybe it has to do with, you can see the sun rising behind it. Maybe it has to do with making new things happen. So just kind of think about that. What does that mean to you? The head of the Department of Education is the Secretary of Education. The Secretary often meets with the President of the United States. They talk about the President's goals for education. The Secretary then works with the rest of the Department of Education to create policies that reflect the President's goals. So I'm going to highlight this right here, and I'm also going to make a little comment. And, I want to think about the fact that what did we learn about presidents? What did we learn about what presidents do? Do presidents just have one job or do presidents have multiple jobs? So if you said they have many jobs, that is correct. So I'm making a connection. This is one of the many jobs that the president has to do. So I'm making that comment, and I'm thinking about the fact that we read that the president has to do many jobs. He has to meet with lots of people. He has to come up with things. Well, this is just part of it. So he has to come up with goals for what he thinks education should look like. And then the secretary has to work with the Department of Education to see if they can come up with some plans that might make sense with what the president wants. The Department of Education receives billions of dollars every year. A lot of this money is given to public schools. After giving money to these schools, the Department of Education looks at how the schools spend the money. The Department of Education also gathers data or information on how students are doing in school. They often gather this data by having students take tests. So, can you think of a test that we have to take? Well, we didn't take it this year, um, but normally we would have to take. It's a really big test, and we get super pumped about it, super excited. Lots of stuff happens in our school because of it. Can you think of it? If you said the PSSA, you are correct. So, our test is the PSSA. So they also give other tests, and basically their goal from those tests is they're looking at the data on how students are doing. And then if we're talking about the money to the schools, they give money to help us fund programs. They give money to help us do things like tier time. They give money to help us make sure that everyone can eat lunch, like a good, healthy lunch. There's all kinds of things that schools have to spend money on, and you might not think about it. And obviously, it's also to pay teachers. So there's a lot of things that goes into that. But that's just one of the jobs of the Department of Education. So, thinking about what we read here, we read this article and think about what the Department of Education does. What is the point of the Department of Education? If you said, I think this pretty much sums it up. Their goal is to create policies to help our schools. And right here, I'll actually highlight this in a different color. Maybe I won't do it in a different color, just kidding. Oh wait, here we go. So education policies are created to help schools and make them more effective. So the goal of school is to make sure that we are helping you to learn. The goal of school is not to torture you, even though some of you might disagree with that. The goal of school is not to just make you sit inside a building all day when you could be outside playing. The goal of school is not to bore you. The goal of school is to help you learn. And when we are effective as teachers and as schools, that's when you become awesome, productive citizens of society. So our goal is to help give you everything you need so that as you grow older, you can go and change the world. You are completely capable, and you are going to change the world in some awesome way. So that is our goal. We're kind of like the stepping stone to help you get up there. We're trying to push you to get you to reach every possible goal you can reach. So the Department of Education is behind that, and they're the ones that create the policies. Now, are those policies always awesome? No. Sometimes they need to be changed. Sometimes they need to be taken away. Think about that's the same way with many laws. Many laws have needed to be changed. Think about the law that African American or women people couldn't vote. That was a law. Was it a good law? No. It needed to be changed. Now anyone over the age of 18 who's an American citizen can vote. So, think about, are these policies always perfect? No, they're not always perfect. But the goal right here is the goal. Their goal is to help schools and to make them more effective. So I have a spot on Schoology where you can just give me one thing that you learned from this article, just one thing. It can be any piece of information that you learned that you didn't know. And I hope that you enjoyed reading this article with me. We're going to continue talking about different federal departments, but this is what we've got for the Department of Education. So I enjoyed my time with you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, third grade.